with Mayor Rob Burns from Monroe, North Carolina. I'm going to play our intro here to let folks join in, and then we'll get going shortly.
Welcome to the Center for Baptist Leadership podcast, hosted by William Wolfe. Our mission is to cultivate courageous and biblical Baptist leadership for the 21st century. We aim to revitalize the Southern Baptist Convention from within, defend it from those who seek its destruction, and serve as a better Baptist voice in the public square.
Oh, all right, Rob. Thanks for joining us, brother. It's good to have you on. How are you doing today?
Good, my friend. How are you doing, William?
I'm doing well, man. You have had a crazy week, really a crazy year in many ways, as the mayor of Monroe, North Carolina. What we could call it a small to mid-sized town in a pretty deep red county here in North Carolina, Union County. Obviously, We're not Mecklenburg County. We're not Charlotte, right? And you're also a Baptist, which is why I love having folks like you on. So, brother, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience? Because I bet a lot of folks listening to this will be unfamiliar with who you are and what your story is. Start at the beginning, where all good stories start. Why did you run for mayor in Monroe, North Carolina?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on today, William. I really appreciate the opportunity. First and foremost, I am Robert Burns. I am the mayor of Monroe, North Carolina. I am a born again, I'm a born again believer in Jesus Christ. I am saved by him, and I'm grateful for everything that he's done in my life. I have 6 children and a beautiful wife on the inside and out. So, my story starts back long ago, and I could get into a testimony more so how I was saved and how the Lord has worked through my life the 42 years I've been here on this planet. But most importantly, the fact that I am now mayor of North Carolina. You simply asked what got me started. And really, you can go back a few years ago, because I have felt called my entire life to get into politics. William, I actually tell people this. I say, since I was a kid, I was told I was either going to be a politician, an attorney, or a pastor. And they're all basically nowadays one and the same. So, or at least the same skill set. So fast forward a couple of years ago, I really rewind a couple of years ago, we ended up getting news that that there was an all-age drag show happening in the city of Monroe. And appalled as we were, my wife and I, being very pro-life, from the womb to the tomb, as we say, at conception, of course, we decided that we were going to go help with an organization called Love Life in Charlotte, North Carolina. So going on the front lines was not anything new to us. And what we ended up doing was going downtown when we found out that this was happening. And we ended up protesting with a group of individuals, and was shocked and appalled that the length at which the leftists were coming at our city of Monroe, we were unaware of. And then realizing that we had conservatives and hoping for the best that they would step into the fray and do something about it, and realizing there was nothing really being done at the time. And so that's what got me launched into the political world. For years we said next city we move to, I'm going to run for mayor. It's just one of those things. And the previous election to that, my wife was like, no, don't do it. But once she found this out and realized the inaction of our city council, she said, okay, now's the time. And so that's the thing that catapulted me to where I am. And so, yeah, now the rest is a story that God is building on. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, that story is not too uncommon, I think, with a lot of Christian men these days, where they realize that terrible things, wicked, ungodly things are happening in their small towns you wouldn't think they would happen in, right? This isn't Seattle, right? This isn't Los Angeles. This is Monroe, North Carolina, in Union County, and you see all-age drag shows being promoted and happening on essentially our main street here in the city. And so you run for mayor, but you were an outsider, right?
I was.
So tell us a little bit about that campaign. You decide to run sort of not part of the machine, not the next man up. How did that go?
So it's interesting enough. A few weeks in after I applied or put my name into the hat and trying to figure things out, I had a meeting with our previous mayor, or the mayor at the time. And he said, listen, I put in 10, 11 hours a week. And I'm like, oh, okay. So this is going to be something that's doable, right? Still have a life and family, business, all of that. And shortly after that, because I'm very outgoing and just, very vocal, I was asked at one point, hey, listen, this is not your thing. Okay, this is not your race, by the powers that be around the city. Literally told at one time, step down, let the next guy step up, and maybe we can appoint you to council, because he was at the time running for council seat. Now, I've been very quiet about those interactions over the course of the past few months, but naturally now at this time, William, as you said, now is the time to just kind of unleash and let people know really what's been happening here. I was not the next man up. I wasn't the person that they were expecting to step up. As a matter of fact, the guy previously who'd been on council, he had been the mayor pro tem, was the guy that they wanted to, and they tried to get at me at a couple different times. I wasn't, even during the campaign season, William, honestly, I had individuals come up to me and say, I love your message. Why have you not served before? Well, why we haven't, it's that same story as you said, that constant where people are just sick and tired of the typical politicians. And I think that resonates. And I think that resonated a lot with Donald Trump too. He, even though he's obviously a different animal in a different machine, the reality is that people are just sick and tired of it. And my name immediately started getting out there because of that. I wasn't part of that. And it did immediately cause some anxiety and stress, I would say, even in the city council, but they saw that happen. So the guy that I ran against had been in council for a while. And then I'd also run against at the time, there were 5 other people running for mayor. There was one lady who'd been on council before, and then another gentleman who had been running for 8 years. He had run and not gotten anything, but they all had that name recognition. And I'm sure we can talk about it, and we might as well. But it went to a tie and nationally recognized coin flip as well. But I tell people this, I ran for 3.5 months versus a guy that I ended up tying with at the time that had been doing it for 8 years. And I guarantee if you would have given me another month and a half, then it wouldn't have even been close.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love this story, right? Particularly because you're a Christian, and you've been, a part of like local Baptist churches here in the area.
Yes.
Just the providence of God, right? Like
Amen.
the man casts the lot into the lap, but every outcome is from the Lord. So you ran against this machine that you weren't a part of, against a guy who had been trying to be mayor for 8 years. And correct me if I'm wrong, but initially he was a little bit ahead of you. Then there was a recount. There was a recount that put you at a dead tie.
No. So here's what happened. So I actually showed up really well during early voting. We were there. I didn't miss a day, actually, as a matter of fact. And my first initial numbers came in. They were really strong. Then it was crazy because that entire night, election night, right? So that's early voting times. And then throughout the entire election night, I was kind of low because those were like inner city, like other things that my name wasn't out there as much. My precinct is the largest Republican and conservative precinct in the entire Union County. And when that precinct and then, the next two precincts came in around here, it catapulted me all the way up. And election night, I was down by 1 vote. So there's a canvassing, that has to happen. It's a process in which all the votes for the mail-in ballots, individuals who came and didn't bring their ID, they don't get immediately counted. Or if people vote in the wrong precinct, they don't get immediately counted. It's a process to make sure that it's even legal. Okay. And we have a really strong and really good board of elections here in Union County. As a matter of fact, very fair. And so that next day, 10 days, we had to wait. The 10th day, that Friday, all the processing came in. I got 20 votes. He got 19. And that was a shock. You could have blown me over at the time. And so, anyways, I say that to say, it was a very shocking, very unique experience. And then to continue that on, William, I know that, we might get to that, but ultimately they didn't have a provision, they said, for for who calls. It was a coin toss. Who calls the coin toss? And it was interesting because that whole week, we had a lot of people. God's providence was all over. I can get in a lot more stories about this, but God's providence was all over it. And these news broadcasters would come to me and to Bob and say, "Hey, listen, what happens? It's a coin toss. What would you call if it was a coin toss?" And I'm like, "Man, I wouldn't. There's not going to be a coin toss, but I would call heads." So that day when we tied, they said we had to sign over our right for a recount. Okay. So we could get it done right then and there. And I agreed. And then the other guy, Bob, he agreed. And then I walk up to the middle. They said, "We don't have a provision for who calls it." And I literally was about to say heads. And I went up to him and I said, "Hey, Bob, you call it." And then Bob calls heads. And they flip the silver dollar. It hits the desk. It rolls to our side of the room. At the time prior to that, I'd given an individual that you and I know my camera. And so she's recording it too. So there's no election interference. We didn't touch it, nothing. It rolls around the room, it doesn't hit anything. Doesn't even hit the coffee cup that it lands beside, flips over and just tails. And It was God. It was God's ordination. I knew it immediately. That was a mandate from him.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, it's just such a fun political story, right? Because it's not every day you hear about somebody assuming an elected office, mayor, whatever, off of a coin toss. I got to ask you, I want to get in, there's a lot more to get into, but I want to ask you one question about that.
Sure.
Because in light of recent events where how the city council is really, I'm going to use the word persecution throughout this.
Sure.
Throughout this podcast, I'm going to say that the members of the city council are persecuting you for your faith. And they're 100%. They're trying to strip you of your First Amendment freedom of speech and religious liberty that carries over with you as a citizen of the United States into this elected office of mayor of Monroe. But I did see that this guy, because you've been in the news recently, the guy that you beat on the coin toss is trying to claim that he is still also like the mayor-elect or something. It's like over a year later, he still has sort of like a bitter take on it. I mean, that's ridiculous. He's trying to claim like you're not actually the mayor. Is that what's going on?
No. Here's the deal. I don't take silly things like that personal, to be honest. I think
Mhm.
a lot of my supporters kind of like rail on him a little bit, but then he does the same thing, whatever. It, quite honestly, it's, you just need to pray for the guy. Okay. Like he's that guy that almost got there and then he didn't get there after 8 years. I actually have a little bit of sympathy towards the guy. He is one of those individuals that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, that it's good that we now have partisan elections, because he's that guy who will tell everybody he's conservative in front of this group and then tell everybody he's liberal in front of this group. And so one of those things I think that, he's wanted to be in a position like this for a long time. And I think he's still kind of holding on to that, right? That, that he had the same amount of people, okay, vote as me, but he didn't make it all the way, William. And I think that that's really just gotten to him. And so it is what it is. I honestly don't care. Let him have mayor-elect title on it. He's not the mayor. He, just who cares? Who cares?
Okay. Well, it was funny. So you took office. When did you take office? What day?
I took office December 12th, 2023.
December 12th, 2023. All right. And so you're the mayor and you ran. When you ran, you didn't hide anything. You didn't say one thing to one group of people and a different thing to a different group. You said, I'm Rob Burns. I'm a Christian. I'm a conservative, because at that time it was a nonpartisan election. So you weren't going around saying I'm a Republican, because you're saying I'm a Christian. I'm a conservative. Obviously, I'm sure you're a registered Republican here in North Carolina for our election. So it's nobody. It's not like we're pretending, but it's not like they didn't know you were a conservative Christian and that it actually meant something to you, and it wasn't just a campaign slogan. And so
that's the key. That's the key. What you just said, that it actually means something to me.
Right. And so in June of 2024, you released help me get the wording right. A proclamation. Was it a proclamation?
That's right.
You released a proclamation in June of 2024. So this is about 6 months after you've been in office.
Right.
Celebrating the anniversary of the overturn of Roe v. Wade.
That's right.
It was a beautiful proclamation. It's funny, Rob. I said in one of my other posts about this, I was like, it's about the most normie, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's not like it's not like it's edgy. It's not like it's pushing the envelope. No. It's like, if you're a conservative Christian in America, don't you want this is such a normal thing. And so you were elected to do it. So you issue this proclamation and celebrating the overturn of Roe v. Wade, the saving of lives of unborn babies. Amen. You even expressed sympathy in that proclamation and concern for women who have had abortions. And so I thought your wording was very, very kind. Dude, what happened next, man? Because that blew up in your face, did it not?
Well, I often say, and I've noticed this throughout my entire time being mayor, is that every time that I'm attacked, God ends up building my platform, because I am keeping him first. Matthew 6:33, seek first ye the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all things will follow. That's not something like you're going to go and you're going to slam dunk, right? And you're going to run a 40-yard dash in 3.4 seconds or win the Super Bowl. But it's keeping him focused. And that's the thing, right? If God is for us, who can be against us? And so I'm going to use my platform for my conservative Christian beliefs. And it's even funny nowadays, you have to say conservative in there, and I get fired up about that, because it's ridiculous that that's where we are today. And so, I take the title that the Lord has blessed me with considerably. Okay. And I take that title and I want to use that to be a voice for the voiceless. And I am very pro-life, from the womb to the tomb, at immediacy of conception. Okay. And so this Dobbs decision is massive. It's saving millions of lives, and we're going to keep moving forward and keep pushing forward as well. But I do want to show sympathy to those that I don't know their situation, and let them know that we're here to help. We love you. We don't condemn you. Just go and sin no more, right? Or come and say, hey, listen, we are here to help you. And that, you don't want your baby, but there are thousands of believers and individuals out there who will help you and who do want that baby. And so, just simply releasing a proclamation, and yes, they then censured me. And, one specific individual on that is a woman who is at a local church here, and it's very, strict church, but with really good people too, which is really interesting. Really nice people, a very devout, pastor who is active in politics, by the way, especially on the state level. And she had this up because it wasn't neutral. There's no way in any of these situations, William, and you know this, you can't speak for all people. You're going to speak and you're going to represent the individual specifically that voted you to get there. And, and as you said, I've never shied away from who I am. And yet it wasn't good enough for them. It wasn't neutral enough. That's not a local issue. And yet it is, because we also have a pregnancy resource center here in Monroe that helps thousands of families, not just women, but families. And that's what gets me so fired up, is it is absolutely a local issue. We need to let the women know in our community that we care about them. We love them. Please don't do this with your baby. There's a lot of abortion-minded individuals in this city and around in our community. We need to let them know that, that we won't cast them aside. We'll help them. There's a better option than abortion. And that's where I'm just flabbergasted is the best word at this point. Why it continually becomes an issue, specifically for 3 individuals who ran on Christian conservative values, also the election prior and this upcoming election as well.
Yeah, so let's try to break this down just in sort of like to orient people to the facts of the case, right? So you are the mayor of Monroe, and I want to be clear here, Rob. It's not just a title, right? It's a position. It's a position. Right. It's not just a title. You are our duly elected mayor, and as a Christian, you understand that being a government official, it comes with responsibilities, not just to the people who you serve, the people who elected you, but before God. Like you are required before God, per Romans 13:1-7, to be a terror to evildoers. That's the words that's used there in the text, and to do what is righteous, right? To be righteous. So when you are using your position, not just title, your position as mayor, to celebrate something as righteous as the overturning of Roe v. Wade, celebrating the Dobbs decision. I mean, I don't know how anybody could launch a legitimate criticism of that. But so this gets to the composition of the council, right? So there are 7 people on the council, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I'm one of them. Yes, and
you're one of them. But ostensibly, there are 3 people on this council who ran saying they too were conservative Christians. Is that correct?
That is right. That's Julie Thompson, Gary Anderson, and James Carr.
And then there are 2 people on the council who, I mean, I don't know whether they claim to be a Christian or not. They might, but they're clearly associated with Democrats' leftism.
Yes,
right. I mean, Saluda is what's her role in the North Carolina Democrat Party?
So she's in the executive. She's on the executive committee of the North Carolina Democrat Party.
Yeah, right. And then the 7th guy is James.
No. And then the other one is David Dotson, and he ran the same election that I did, and he got in, and he is a police officer from Charlotte-Mecklenburg, and he was up until this past Tuesday, the mayor pro tem.
Right.
Good guy.
But so
Christian conservative. Yeah. So me and him see eye to eye.
Yeah, but so this is just what's so crazy here is you would think, without knowing everything we're getting into now, that the city council has a majority of Christian conservatives on it, a 5-2 majority. You would think,
yes.
But when you did something as simple as celebrating the end of Roe, one of those self-identifying Christian conservatives, Julie Thompson, she's the one who led the charge to what did they do to you after that? They censored you.
Yeah.
And then they took away your ability to make official proclamations.
Yes. So it was kind of like a 3-2-1 punch. Okay. So the first one was they took away my ability to make proclamations. Okay.
And what was the vote on that? Give us the vote breakdown. So 5-2?
Yes. Everything on this was 5-2. Every bit of it was. It's 5-2. Mm-hmm. So they took away my ability to make proclamations under the guise of telling people I did it incorrectly and didn't have a process for that, which I followed the same process that has been in line for 30 years. Okay. All the mayors before me have done the same exact thing, and which is on occasion, you might even mention it to the council, but it was not processed that you had to get it cleared by council or voted on by council. And so what you would do is you would write a proclamation, and you would actually, though, you would send it before sending it out, you would send it to the attorneys. And so what I did is exactly that. I sent the first proclamation to the attorneys. They spread, like Julie Thompson and all of them, they spread all of these lies. Okay. And I keep specifically pointing out Julie for a reason, and we'll get eventually to that. But James Carr is the massive one in the lie, that's all these lies. Okay. And so the whole council, let's just say, other than me and David. And so anyways, I got the process through. I pushed it through to the attorneys, Will, and literally not joking you, they sent it back and they said it's too evangelistic. And there are some rules that you have to, I guess, abide by a little bit, right? And so it was too evangelistic. So it's like, okay, so they sent it back. They said, make these changes. And I thought long and hard. I'm like, nah, I'm not going to do that. If they're going to censure me, then I'll just be angry about it. I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. So I made the changes requested. I sent it back to them. Exactly what the attorney said. They said, okay, good, you're good. And then what? Now send it out. So then they sent out. So I had full approval, but they removed the ability for due proclamations. So that was the first one. The second one was they took my ability as mayor to even make mayoral committees. And Julie was the one who made the first motion. And I was stunned. And I said, Ms. Thompson, why are you doing that? There's nothing I've done that's political there, you can even say. And her simple answer was, well, simply, Mayor, I don't trust that you won't do that. And it's like, what? And I'm like, so this is before any of this other stuff that they even did on Tuesday, and continually, they've never seen anybody like me before. So, because you can't control them, let's just, rub their name in the mud. So I'm like, okay, so they all voted. And once again, it was 5-2. And then finally they made they censured me for the way I've spoken on social media and all this other stuff, things that are literally First Amendment rights. Was the censor vote just on the proclamation, or was about your other social media posting? It was on the proclamation. They're going to tell you that's not true, but that's not the only thing, but it was, because they had things that didn't stick, by the way, for months, that they've been trying to do, those specific 3, but I would say almost all accounts other than David, the mayor pro tem at the time. They were trying to put things through, but when they got that proclamation, they told everybody I was abusing my power. And that's ultimately what they were saying, that I was speaking for the city when I shouldn't be speaking for the city, and that what I was doing was wrong, and I was abusing my power, and I was subverting processes. All of those things, along with comments online about calling beta males and snowflakes. I did that, I do that too. Well, I gotta pause you here for a second though, because
sure,
you know what, man, correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to recall that the way that we hold elected officials accountable for so-called abusing their power or saying things that people don't like is through elections. I hadn't thought about this just too much until just now. What these city council members are doing is they are actually being incredibly undemocratic. They are 100%. The people of Monroe put you in this position, and they know what you believe, and you will face an election again in the future. And if they don't like it, if they don't like your social media posts, if they don't like your proclamations, if they don't like how you manage the city, man, they can vote you out. But it is not the city council's job to try to act as some sort of well, I guess they're elected too, but to try to silence the voice of the voters who put you in that place. It's just insane. Yeah. What a great way to put it. I mean, they're constantly trying to illegitimize the people who voted for me. And, again, I'll go back to the fact that how God is continually building this platform, and then what he's doing through what they are doing, right? Because every time that they make these moves and they do this stuff, it only gets my name out there more, and I was on Not the Bee right after that. I had multiple interviews and phone calls and stuff, but now my platform has even grown even more this year, just as time goes. And it's this, and what they don't realize is that people are not dying for people like me specifically, or me. I'm saying they're dying for people that have a backbone, willing to get into politics and stand up to this type of behavior, that it resonates. And when you say silent majority, the silent majority is not as silent as it once was. And it's because of these types of actions. And that's what we want. We want to improve that. And we want to push people to say, hey, come out and vote. But I can tell you right now, you're absolutely right. Like if they don't like me, let the people decide this upcoming election, which now got pushed back to a whole nother year. They're making it more difficult on themselves to get elected, not me, because everything that I've said, even all the way down to development, which is so simple and silly, is the things that we should be talking about, and road development and things like that in the city. I have held to everything I've done. And really funny enough, the others have not. As a matter of fact, we're getting things done because I push so much. I honestly believe that they've never pushed before this much, ever. And I brought so much attention to this city. The Lord's done it through me. And let me be very clear, because I don't want to take any of this credit, is that now they are they're behaving differently, but now their pegs down, man. They keep doing this and they keep behaving this way. It's not faring well for them. I've had more people this past week, Will, reach out to me and say, I had one guy this morning call me and say, listen, I'm just going to go and tell you, there's some people out here. And he was walking the streets that will never vote for you. But now they're not voting for any, like, it's kind of like now what they're doing is taking a step back and saying, I'm not voting for any of these other candidates. And I'm surely not going to vote for these people. Like, yeah, that's what's happening. And our current council just doesn't see it. So we'll see the ballot box or the voting. And I'll tell you right now, it will happen. They will all go out 100%.
Well, Lord willing, but let's keep moving through. So it's like, so this was last June. Yeah. Again, I just want to repeat it again for everybody listening. You do something as basic, as simple, as Christian, as conservative, as celebrating the end of Roe v. Wade, the Dobbs decision, and then 3 fake conservatives on the council joined with 2 committed liberals to censor you for it, to remove your ability to make mayoral proclamations and then do some other stuff on committees. But that's not the last controversy. June's the month you get in trouble, man. And so then there's been a couple other issues that have continued to percolate here in our city over the last year. One of them is this all-age drag show issue, which really is insane. I feel like any red-blooded, American Christian conservative father or mother, this is the kind of stuff that drives them into politics. When I learned about it, I couldn't believe it that it was happening. So talk to us a little bit more about that, because you led a charge to try to put an end to that, an official end, using authorities that the city council could have to put an end to it. Instead, you got sort of like a behind closed doors, but also public handshake agreement that this, venue would stop doing it, but they could start doing it again at any time. Yeah. And then I was there at the city council meeting when you and David put forward, sort of a resolution or something to say, hey, let's keep studying this. Let's look into it further. Let's find the authorities we have to shut this down. And again, you lost that vote 2-5. So just tell us a little bit more about that and how that showed you how these so-called conservative Christians on the council aren't really that conservative or Christian at all.
So let's go back, all the way back to the month before I was, I'd won the entire election. Okay. And we noticed very simply that all of a sudden that same place that did it, like kind of rubbing it in everybody's face, specifically the people that were going out and protesting. And we're not talking about picketing and yelling and no matter what they say, it's just literally standing there and telling people, don't show up, don't go in there, and doing it. And, it was crazy, but standing out there protesting, all of a sudden it just stopped, William. And come to find out, it's because it was through a handshake, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Like, they'll tell you that they went and they talked to him and that we did everything we could. No, they didn't. They were scared to death of me because, again, when I say they could see the way in which the wind was blowing, they could see that people were sick of this, and that what they were doing was at the same time promoting me, because they were doing other things also. That same establishment was coming after me. And they realized this is not doing good. This is not helping our hand-picked next guy. And so they stopped. I'm telling you, if I wasn't here, they would be doing it again. I absolutely believe it. So for months after that, a year or so, we've had plenty of people come up, a few individuals, who are very consistent and very loyal to that cause to make sure, stop doing this, do something about it. And simply even me going in and doing the research and working behind the scenes and trying to figure out what we can do. Our attorneys were like, really, Mayor, there's really not a ton we can. It needs to go to the state, so on and so forth. So this past year, at the beginning of the year, Councilwoman Thompson came to me because it resonated with her when one of those individuals said, during her comment period time, William said, "We are all watching you as it's election season coming." After that meeting, she came up to me. She said, "Mayor, let's do something about this." I said, "I have an idea." Because here's the reality. We already have obscenity laws in the city of Monroe. We already have, the law was strengthened, didn't say that drag was adult entertainment, but still strengthened up at the state. And if you understand how the state behaves that counties are an arm of the state and municipalities are a creature of the state. So we have the ability to they direct you and they create the municipality inside of a border or inside of the playground. And then that's how you behave, right? And so we still have the ability to have ordinances. And so our attorneys were like, there's really no other ordinances that we can make. We already have the obscenity laws. So I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take all this information and we're going to go to, the city council and put it on. I explained it all, even to Ms. Thompson a couple of times. And I explained it and said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to put this on the agenda. It's not going to be specifically just about drag shows, but we want to get more information. And what we want to say is we're going to take it to the right authorities like the DA and the police department and all of that stuff. We're not creating an ordinance. We said it. We even told all of our supporters, it's not going to be an ordinance. The Thursday before the meeting, I get a phone call from James and Julie, and they demanded for me to take that off the agenda out of the blue. It's a true story, out of the blue. And I pushed back and I said, I'm not taking this off the agenda. And then it was like all hell broke loose internally in the council. And I believe that was the moment actually that James started trying to do everything he could to come back at me because I was not listening to him. And then Miss Julie, the same exact thing. Like, here we go again. And I do not know why. And so we went into that meeting and I thought that they were going to completely take it off. They got good advice not to, because it would have, been the nail in the political coffin, which has already happened now recently. But they decided to put it to the closed session meeting. We talked during the closed session. We come out and that was it, William, that we brought it forth to the next meeting. After that second meeting, it comes in, we have the opportunity to create a position statement. Keep in mind, Julie has recently done one as well. Because she didn't like the immigration position statement. So she wrote a whole nother one. They all voted against having a position statement that was simply going to be this. If you do this again, we already have the obscenity laws in place. We will prosecute you and we will do what is right. That we already have the obscenity laws. We will enforce them. That's actually what I mean to say. We will enforce those. But then the beauty is then that if you enforce those laws will then become, it will make that establishment an adult entertainment establishment and it will outzone them. That's really what we could have done. Like, hey, we already have them. We're going to enforce them. And they didn't want to do it. And I honestly can't tell you why.
It's insane when you pair it to what it's sort of this like disgusting sandwich of, when you pair it with how aggressively they've come after you. So they come after you aggressively and they find solutions to silence you, take away your free speech, to try to neuter you as mayor. And then they completely look the other way and refuse to take any action to protect the children of our city. And then they come back around this June and July and come after you again. If only they could channel, I don't know, a tenth of that energy that they direct at coming after you, at coming after the actual bad guys in our city, then maybe we would be in a better place. But that's not the situation we're in. So the drag shows kind of drag on. This whole thing goes on. I came and spoke against that at City Council, and as it stands today, it's like, well, they're not happening. Or so we're told, right? They could happen again, and the city council is so feckless. You and David don't have the support to actually, get this across the finish line, which is why it's so important you get support in the next election here. But then you've done a couple other things too. Again, just like common sense stuff in the age of Trump. You did some stuff on DEI and on immigration enforcement too. and we're met with, it's the same story every time. You and David do the right thing. These 5 others stand against you. Tell us a little bit about the immigration and DEI stuff.
Okay. So first up was DEI, specifically because in the state of North Carolina, this is a pass-through state. Okay. Meaning that when federal funds come, they basically are directed directly to any municipality, or county based on their partnership with the federal government. Okay. So when President Trump, he had an executive order of DEI. And again, actually, as a matter of fact, really funny enough, James Carr, who's the other, one of those other rhinos that's on the council, he came up to me one time and said, "What are we going to do about DEI?" Like, okay, well, now that President Trump is in, we got to do something about it. Here's the reality about it. Okay, is the council itself, just on the face value, that committee itself, the DEI committee. Sirluta Anthony really did try on that committee. Let's be honest. She tried to rally support and get people there. But William, it took 4 months for them to even approve minutes because they could not get quorum. They shrunk the amount of people that had to come to the meeting specifically so they could get quorum, and they never met quorum. You actually had another council member and David on there. David was on there because he's done DEI stuff in the city of Charlotte, where he's an officer, and so he was, willing to go and be eyes and ears and help and that type of stuff and just kind of get an understanding of really what they were doing. But as we were saying, very, very little. And so as a whole, if this was any other committee in the city, then we would not have it because it was ineffective. But it's one of the only committees that had a budget. And you're like, okay. And so they're not even meeting to be able to fix or be able to even vote on the minutes. And they were constantly having to cancel these meetings when they were going in. So just on the surface as a whole, it was an ineffective committee.
So the committee to study DEI was ineffective. Go figure.
Yeah. Right. And so anyways, so we got an executive, we saw the executive order, and then our city's like, well, listen, we have roughly $20 million in funds that we're looking for the airport. The airport is a hub of business for our city. And it is like, we are one of the largest manufacturing cities right now in North Carolina, to be honest. We have lots of business and manufacturing happening around here, and it's thriving. Our airport's getting that much bigger and more busy. It's number 2 in general aviation in the entire state. And so we're like, we can't allow this to affect our business. And so a handful of us agreed. And so we're like, okay, here's what we're going to do. Well, there was once this executive order passed, I went with a city manager. We talked to Sirluta and we said, listen, we'll take this money. And we actually have another thing that we're working on. We'll transfer this money over to another one that is very similar. It's for a Winchester Revitalization Committee. Long story short. Okay. Well, we go into the meeting. And they had you would not believe this, the DEI committee had a committee meeting like a couple of days before the council meeting, the largest attendance in 3 or 4 years all of a sudden shows up. Okay. Tons of people are there. And this is the most effective committee in all of Monroe. So they come into the meeting in city council and they all balk. They are like, everyone on city council, but 3 of us. And they decide that we're going to keep it, that we're going to keep the DI committee. They all flip their votes and we're going to keep the DI committee, until a piece of document comes in that we need to sign for DEI or to say, hey, we don't have DEI. We need the money for the federal grant. So anyways, they keep it. All right. Now, this is hilarious. Right after that, I'm not trying to be long-winded on this answer, but right after that, the next meeting between the two, we had another meeting 3 weeks later. Okay, this wasn't even a city council meeting; it was a special meeting, because what happened is they had another DEI meeting. Do you know that they didn't get quorum that next DEI meeting? They didn't even get quorum 2 weeks after again. So everyone showed up to say this is political stunt and what the mayor and the mayor pro tem are doing and Donald Trump. And everybody was there. And then the next meeting, they didn't even get quorum again. And then so the following week, we got a piece of paper from the federal government that our manager had to sign. We call a special meeting and we cancel DEI. So that's the story with DEI. I mean, yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just, I mean, it's really a clown show of incompetence in so many ways on all these issues. And again, just that the fact that the reason I really want to talk to you and just try to broaden it for people's general consumption and understanding here is that, welcome to a red state near you. Welcome to a red town near you. Welcome to a red city near you. You might think you've got people on city council who are going to represent your interests, who are going to lead on addressing issues as simple as, getting rid of DEI so federal funds are not in jeopardy for the development and the well-being of our city. And they can't do anything about it until they're absolutely forced to at the last second, right? So it's not just you're dealing with people who are ideologically opposed to you and wearing conservatism as like a skin suit, but you're also dealing with people who are fundamentally incompetent and don't really care about managing our city well. So that was the DEI thing. And then just briefly tell us about the immigration, because that could continue to come up as we get to sort of the big bomb, which was, just last week, they voted no confidence in you, and they tanked your main political ally, David Dotson, who was the mayor pro tem, and replaced him. The conservatives on the council replaced him with one of the most liberal individuals on the council just to get at you. But just tell us briefly about what you were trying to do on the illegal immigration issue.
So it's very, very quick, very similar to that of DEI. President Trump releases an executive order. Again, because the FAA and many other things, those are executive branch departments. Okay, so when they release these, you have to follow through, specifically in a pass-through state. And so again, now I obviously agree with immigration policy. It's not the only reason why I wanted to do these things, because I also agree with them. But like on a simple basis, like how do you even argue that? And so same thing with immigration. As a matter of fact, it went in front of the Public Safety Committee back in February, March, one of the two. Let's just say March, okay? Went in front of the Public Safety Committee in March, where is just an immigration status, an immigration policy, okay, position statement. That's all it was. No proclamation, no nothing. Basically saying that we're not a sanctuary city and that our law enforcement officers are not ICE. Okay, but we comply with the federal agencies when asked, and to kind of help in that same weirdness, clarify all the misinformation that the left shoots out there. That ICE is out tracking down everybody. No, their goal is to find illegal, violent criminals. We want them out of, for the safety of all people, we want them out of Monroe. Okay, we want them out of our state and out of our country. We don't want violent, illegal criminals anywhere around us. We need safety. And that is one of our jobs as a city council, to make sure that everyone's safe. But here's the best part, William. We've always complied. We've always complied with ICE or the federal regulations on this. Okay. So, because we have an incredible sheriff's department here as well. And our sheriff, he don't play. So anyways, we have this entire position statement written up. You would not believe who's on the position statement, or who's on the Public Safety Committee. Julie Thompson and our mayor pro tem, David Dotson. So a couple months later, we end up having, this is about 2 meetings ago, it gets to city council. Probably actually about 3 meetings ago, gets to city council, and it passes with the 2 Democrats against it, and James Carr, who is a registered Republican. Remember, he's one of those ones that ran as a conservative Christian. And then a no vote, which counts as a yes, by the way, by Julie Thompson. That's important to keep in mind. A no vote, but it still counts as a yes. And then the 3 that voted for it specifically were me, David Dotson, and Gary Anderson. Now, right after that happened, of course, the left and everybody around here really were riled up.
And just to be clear, again, what this was a simple statement saying Monroe is not a sanctuary city. We will comply with ICE. That's it.
That's it, basically, yes. And it was also clarification that our police department is not hunting people down based off of skin color and immigration status. That's not what they do.
Sure.
Right. And so we've always done, complied. And so anyways, shortly after that, of course, all this misinformation, the really loud leftists are just crazy. They come out immediately. We hate, all immigrants. We have a large Hispanic community here, so that resonates very, very loudly with them. And Ms. Thompson's statement back once again is, I didn't know enough information, and I will take care of this, and I will get more information on this. I didn't know enough. That's literally what she was telling people, because she did a no vote. It was kind of like the neutral way of saying yes, but she thought that it would fare better for her on that. Here's the catch. Do you know that she was the person who seconded that motion from the Public Safety Committee to even come to council? She's not told anybody that. And so she seconded it. And then she didn't have enough information. Here's the best part. As you said earlier during our interview, what really happens is that she has now worked harder. She worked harder to create a second position statement that removed anything about immigration in it, and just how we support the police and how we always have. She worked harder to fix something there. If she really had real issues, she should have worked harder the first time.
Yeah, for sure.
But so she spent weeks working on this because she wanted to save face weirdly with individuals who, by the way, will never vote for her. And so we're like, okay, that's fine, whatever. So she brings it up, and then she makes a motion to rescind the previous one that we did and put that one in place. But it failed, because here's the deal. She can't make the motion because she did a no vote, even though she was a yes. Because the only people to rescind something that was voted on, the only people that can do that are the ones who voted yes. But because she no voted, she couldn't do that. And they couldn't get to either David, myself, or Gary Anderson to rescind the vote. So you know what they did? They literally created another one that sounds incredibly similar and added it to it. The one that they did, they just added it to it. Didn't rescind the immigration status one, but now we have we support the police one, which is literally the same language, other than anything in immigration, and we're not a sanctuary city. So
it's, what it sounds like is it sounds like our city council is operating on a daily, weekly, monthly, and at this point over a year, sort of a basis, not to care for the citizens of Monroe well, not to defend basic conservative positions, common sense positions, right? I mean, we can use the word conservative, liberal, but I mean, so much of this is just common sense, right? We should remove illegal aliens from our community. We should not endanger our ability to receive important federal funding because we've adopted absurd and, quite frankly, racist. That's what it is. DEI is racist, just against different people than, you might think, absurd DEI policies, common sense stuff. But it seems like our council members, they don't care about the citizens of Monroe. They care about you. Everything that they're doing is in response to you. And, I thought about titling this sort of Rob Burns versus the Longhouse. Let me explain what the Longhouse is real quick. The Longhouse is this phrase that sort of connotates society that's really sort of infected by feminism, not by the idea that like we love women, love strong mothers, things like that, right? But sort of feminist ideology that focuses on safetyism, on tone, on tone over substance, right? On policing speech that they don't like how it sounds, even if they might agree with what it says at the end of the day, or they want to pretend to. And really watching you versus Julie square off, it's really like, Rob Burns versus the Longhouse here. You can't get anything done, not because you're doing wrong things, but just because they don't like how you're saying things, which is insane. That leads us to what happened just recently, which is just totally nuts. And so we come back to June, and I love this about you, Rob. You're like, I'm going to do it again. And so we hit June this year. And what did you do again?
So we hit June. And of course, the other thing too, that's part of this, not only with the proclamation for pro-life last year, but I also did a proclamation in honor of Juneteenth and what it really is. Okay. So I also, same exact thing. I used a letterhead that was given to me by administrative staff that says City of Monroe, doesn't even have the seal anymore, and using that process where it says, once again, that these are my views and not that of the city of Monroe. So this was what was given to me after our council used this. And by the way, this phrase is supposed to be on all of our social media and even supposed to be on our emails. Okay. That's incredibly important to note because I released an actual letter honoring Juneteenth and with the ratification of the 13th Amendment that actually freed all people. Okay. All enslaved individuals. So then we move forward and I do the exact same thing in a pro-life, not proclamation, letter to basically all the people of Monroe and said, listen, we need to honor and stand up, and celebrate this day, this momentous day that has saved millions of lives. And then at the same time, honoring, those women and individuals who are constantly on the front lines to end abortion altogether. But then we want to show sympathy and care to the individuals who are abortion minded and those who've also gone through it. Like it was a really sympathetic letter too, because I genuinely actually care. I mean, going through these abortion mills and things like that, what Planned Parenthood never does is they never tell these women the weight that they'll carry the rest of their lives, mentally and physically as well. And sometimes endanger them from having babies when they actually want them. Right. And so they never talk about that stuff. So it's really near and dear to my heart, and we have an incredible resource center here in Monroe, like I said earlier. And so, again, speaking to the people, and that was what they used against me again. But here's the thing. So this past week, one was to remove the mayor pro tem. OK.
Wait, let me just pause you there for a second,
yes.
because you've got the context. I have some of the context, but I really want our listeners to understand what happened. So
yes,
so a year later, you say, I'm going to do this again, but I'm going to do it how they told me to do it.
Correct.
Okay, so they said I can't make official mayoral proclamations on behalf of the city, but they gave me these guidelines for how I, as the mayor, can make I can make statements that are essentially under my personal title as mayor.
Right.
They're almost trying to, it's ridiculous. They're trying to separate your title from the position, which is just absurd, right? They shouldn't even be able to do that. So they gave you these guidelines to follow for your social media, for these letters. You followed them and they still got mad at you.
Correct. Absolutely.
Okay, so go from there. So you do the Juneteenth letter, you do the pro-life statement again. And
yes.
so then what happened?
So of course, we didn't see near as much frustration because I believe, like vocally on Facebook and stuff like that, because many people realized what I had done. I didn't write a proclamation, right? Because I didn't have the authority to do that. So people were not happy about it. Of course, who cares? I don't care, And so, then they actually put the beginning of last week. They put a staff report in that said that they were going to censure me actually again. And on that was the reasoning. One, I don't run orderly meetings. Two, I knew about HB3 and I did not tell council, which we can get into what HB3 is. And then three was that I was releasing statements using that letterhead that did not deal with actual local governance. So the attorneys told them, like, listen, you can't do this. You can't censure him because this would all be a free speech violation. So, you need to change this. And they agreed to do that. They still could have done that, but it would remove the veil from them of the protection of the city. And so they decided to do this vote of no confidence, which is like literally, as the attorney told me, it's like them sticking their tongue out at you. I'm like, okay, like this is what y'all want to do. And I even was very open and I called these, a handful of these individuals and tried to talk to them and say, listen, like y'all really don't want to, like, here's my side. Like, these are the things, like, not trying to explain away, but like literally say, hey, like, guys, like, what basis do you have these things on? Like, let's not go down this road. Okay. Like, look, we need to be able to communicate a little bit more. You don't have to like me, but this is not going to be a good look. And I was honestly not really worried about look for me, but really look for the city. And, somewhat for them. And so sure enough, they didn't do it. They didn't take it off. Included in that motion for no, or the staff report or the agenda for a vote of no confidence was also a vote for removing of the mayor pro tem, who, like you said, is a supporter of mine, and we worked very well together. They were just trying to temper the look, is what I feel like, because we also just released the budget that me and him also voted against, and they all voted for. It raises taxes, while Julie and them were touting, oh, it lowers the tax rate. But I can get into that another time. But it actually raises our taxes, because the tax rate and being neutral plus 5 cents, they added technically 5 cents per square foot to every single person's bill. Okay. So they actually rose taxes, but they weren't being like upfront with that. And so it just doesn't look good when the mayor and mayor pro tem are voting against them constantly. And that's really what that was. That's really why they were removing him. And it passed. That instance was 4-3. It passed.
Who did not vote against removing David?
Franco McGee, not for probably a reason that you would think. He's one of the other council members. He is a liberal Democrat. I work with him. At least I know where he stands. I will tell you that. That's why he tends to be, in a lot of ways, a little bit easier to work with. But he voted for it because he saw it as political posturing, because himself and Sir Luda Anthony, before everything with HB3, both announced that they were going to be running for mayor, and they're both Democrats. And
he's running for mayor?
Yes. And so the funny thing is that he really was like, this is political posturing. You're trying to pick the next mayor because she's mayor pro tem, and that's of course if they can beat me. And so they voted for him, voted for her in that same motion to remove David and add, Sir Luda Anthony. Now, thing about her, I'm not here to talk bad or good even about her, but just so you know, I do work with her. You have to. But just facts are facts. She is the executive. She's on the executive committee for the North Carolina, the Democratic Party, and you had 3 Republicans vote to put her on.
And it looks to me really like so they come after you again with this vote of no confidence. Mm-hmm. And the main reasons they did that for you was your social media posting, your personal letter statements, which, I mean, it is honestly just so pathetic. It really is. Like, there's no, I mean, you can be nice, but
else.
Yeah. But me, it's like, I think they're attacking you unconstitutionally, trying to remove your personal free speech. I don't know if there's any legal, remedies available there. I certainly would look into them myself if I was in your position. 2, they really are persecuting you for your faith, right? You're a Christian man who has said, this is who I am. This is how I'm going to lead. If you want to put me into this position, I'm going to lead that way. And if you don't. And the city did, and God did through a coin toss. But here you are. It's not like you're resigning. And they claim to be Christians. They go to local churches, and yet they're coming after you for you doing basic Christian things in your position of leadership. It's almost as if, like, if I didn't know any better, I would say the city of Monroe is a hostile place to be a Christian elected official. If I was going off of what the city council was doing. To be a Christian elected official, but not a Christian, the thing
sure, right. Is to stand up and say that, I do, love this city and the people. And I do believe that people are tired of it. I've gotten a lot of calls, as I said earlier, in messages, and have done quite a few interviews. And a lot of people, even if they won't vote for me, they see the injustice in this and what they're doing. And this is completely backfired on them. Like, at this point, there is absolutely no way possible that at least those 3 will even get reelected. It's just impossible. Now that we have a partisan election, they don't even, you could have any new person show up on the scene, William, and just say, just show me how you vote. I'm not gonna trash these individuals on a personal level, but I don't like the way that they vote. Okay, well, let's just look how they vote. Your voting is your record. Stop telling us that you're Christian conservative Republican. Stop. They probably fare well, better to be unaffiliated or run as a Democrat, to be completely honest. And so, because they will lose in the primary, specifically just based off of their voting record. And and there's a lot of people willing and ready to jump in during that primary season. They won't even, I believe it with all my heart, they won't even make it past March.
Yeah, and so that's getting into a change here for our municipal elections, which is that there was a bill, HB3, we've referenced it some, but it's important for people to understand up until the enactment of this legislation at the North Carolina State House, State and Senate, we had unaffiliated, nonpartisan elections, but now we have partisan elections here with primaries. And it changed our voting schedule from the off year to the on year, right? So it's we'll be voting for a new mayor in 2026, correct?
Correct. That's right.
Right. And they are you sorry, Rob, I should have asked you this earlier. Are you an elected member of the North Carolina State House or State Senate?
No, I am not.
Okay. So you didn't vote on this bill, did you?
No, I did not. I didn't write it either. I'm not an attorney, and nope, didn't write it. Nope, haven't voted on it.
But somehow it's your fault, according to them, because I was watching the strategic session online before the public session earlier this week, and they were coming after you on HB3, coming after you obviously on your social media statements, and it's like, well, he didn't have any control over this. It's just like a witch hunt. That's right.
It is a witch hunt. It's misplaced anger and frustration, and simply because it's local politics, it's easy to do that, right? It's true. But again, I was made to do this, so it is what it is. It comes with the territory. But they can't yell at Trump. Many of them, really nobody, and they can go on social media for them, and it doesn't even get 30 levels below him, he doesn't even hear it. And so, and then on the state side, it's really very similar. It's very rare that you, unfortunately, in a lot of ways, that these guys are going to hear you also. And so a lot of times across the country, on both sides of the aisle, let's be honest too, that the anger comes to the local municipalities. And so that's what this is right now. It was funny because the mayor pro tem and I, David, the mayor pro tem and I, him and I were talking, and right after Trump, he did say, he's like, you understand they're going to be coming after you, right? Because they can't go after Trump. And I'm like, yeah, I know, so yeah, it's misplaced anger. I have nothing. As a matter of fact, it's funny when they say that, oh, he knew all about it. He knew. And they even tried to throw in a resolution that was completely bogus, a whole bunch of lies. We believe it was written by the Democrat Party, or I would say even James Carr potentially, but they might even be one and the same now. And they tried to throw in that I got a message. It was beautiful how it all fell apart though, because we're sitting there and I've been praying. I'm like, Lord, give me wisdom to speak. And so they started reading this resolution, and inside of the resolution, which was also going to be added to the no confidence vote, which never went to legal, which remember, that's another thing rules for thee and not for me. That's one of their arguments that council has made countless times, that it needs to always go through legal. So this never went through legal. It was poorly written, but it was read. And in that a couple of times, it mentioned how I received a message from the National League of Municipalities warning me about HB3. And that I did nothing about it. So finally, when Ms. Cerluda got all the way through, I turned and I asked her, I said, what email are you referring to? Let me be clear. I never saw anything. That doesn't mean that necessarily it wasn't sent to me, but because I don't see every single email, but I went back because she asked for a FOIA request earlier in the day. And I went back and I looked, and so did a couple others, and I didn't have anything. So the fact that it's kept mentioning. So I asked her, I said, Cerluda, who wrote this whole thing? Well, I know who wrote it, but I'm not gonna say. So she wouldn't tell anybody who wrote it. And then I asked her as well, maybe this might be completely, a little bit out of order, but I also asked her, I said, what are you talking about with this letter from the National League of Municipalities? And she goes, well, this came from a really highly, reliable source that has integrity. And I'm thinking, well, wouldn't you have that in front of you? Like, just show somebody like, hey, this was sent to you and you did nothing about it. And she didn't even have that. And I'm like, I'm going to tell you right now, I've never seen it. Where's your proof? Well, I mean, I don't have it. I was told about it. Okay. All right. Or something along those lines. Don't quote me on that because, some people might try to. But then I asked her, I said, here's this, because I heard her say something, which was the date, William. And I said, when was this sent to me? Because I could have sworn I heard her say this. And she says, June 9th. And I looked at her, I said, aha, Monroe wasn't even added till June 11th.
Wow.
So it's all completely bogus, the whole thing. And it was an obvious witch hunt. And let me add to that too, so more people understand that in the meeting previous to that, our councilman, James Carr, who's part of this group, who acts like he's this king, okay? He literally was out in the hallway cussing and yelling at David and I in front of Julie Serluda and our two attorneys, and started jumping at David, asking him, what are you going to do? Hit me? And we were like, y'all can't be okay with this. And I'm shortening down this whole story, but I basically, told everybody this on Tuesday. Like, if that would have been David or I, they would have had a special meeting. He would have been fearful of his life. He would have maybe tried to file a police report, all of this stuff. And we would have been censured. We would have been publicly ridiculed. And Julie and Serluda, who were witnesses to that, did nothing. So yes, it's a witch hunt. It absolutely is. And it's completely baseless what they're doing. I knew nothing about HB3. I've talked to plenty of people, because I believe partisan elections are a great idea, to add transparency and accountability to our elected leaders. And yet I had no idea about HB3 coming. And here we are. They had no proof. I followed process, and they don't even follow their own rules of engagement that they were trying to get me on and running a civil matter or civil meeting. And I will challenge anybody this. I know more about Robert's Rules of Order than they do. And yet they still went through it. It's completely baseless.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it really is hypocritical, right? That's a good word to use to describe so much of what you've been going through. But as we get towards the end of this conversation, because we've gone through a lot of sort of intricate, some intricate details of things happening at, the Monroe, North Carolina City Council. So why do people care about this, right? Well, I mean, these issues matter to everybody, right? The issues we're talking about are free speech, pro-life issues, DEI, immigration, and then just sort of this ridiculous question of being like held accountable for things that are completely outside of your control, HB3, something that you had nothing to do with. But, as I've watched this saga unfold here, and, people know I've mentioned I live here in Monroe, right? So you're my mayor. As I've watched this unfold, it's really just, I pulled the camera back out, and it struck me how like this dynamic is present in so many places. Like, we see what's happening with Trump. People across the country respond to a Trump-like figure well, bold, outspoken, unapologetic, doing what's right for the people that he is, elected to represent. But when you try to replicate a little bit of that, man, we're just going to run into so many roadblocks, right? We're going to run into, fake conservatives, fake Christians. So Rob, as you've gone through all of this over the last year, maybe just kind of pull the camera out and tell us some like lessons learned. Maybe people are listening to this and they're like, man, I wanted to get involved in politics. And now they listen to this and like, I don't know if I want to, but like lessons learned, brother, as a Christian, and as obviously an elected official, are you discouraged by this? Are you emboldened to keep fighting? What are your lessons, and where do you go from here?
It's the latter of what you just said. I'm even more boldened now at this. I have seen God's hand on all of like my entire race, from the time that we were campaigning to the coin flip to how God has used everything for his good, And it is stressful and it is hard at times. But you know what? When you do it for the right reasons, like I'm not here to do it for the applause. So when all the hate comes, it doesn't affect me. Because if I was here to do it so I can have people pat me on the back and tell me good job, then the negative voices would get to you. So if you're wanting to get involved, I encourage you. If you feel God's calling on your life to get involved, maybe it's now time. Because what the council has failed to understand is that they caused me. The Democrats caused Trump. Okay. They caused
and the failed Republicans
and the failed Republicans. Correct.
Yeah.
And please understand, people are tired of these antics and they see through them all the time. And you could say that I'm politically positioning myself. No, I'm not that smart. I'm not that great. I'm not, no. But our God is. He's in full control. I often get like, some people come at me and they're like, man, like, how many people do you have working for you? And I said, one, and I'm really working for him. He's organizing all of this stuff to happen. Like he's swaying, they give me this weird credit for working because I believe in partisan elections. They're transparent, fair elections. That's what our platform should always be. Republicans, conservatives, I would say Americans should want transparent elections. And they're giving me credit for swaying the hearts and minds of everyone in the Senate and the House of Representatives up in Raleigh. There's only one person who can do that, and that's Jesus Christ himself. And so they don't understand. And if you feel like God is calling you to do something like this, I highly encourage you to do it, because I'm telling you, when you're weak, he is strong. It's not always easy, but you know what? Like when you keep him first, like in Matthew 6:33, my life first, when you keep him first and you seek out righteousness, that's the key, right? You're not just seeking God. And I've had this discussion with people on council, including Julie, but we have to still seek righteousness. We still have to want to be better than what we are. And we'll never get there, but we cannot like sustain this idea of apathy. Oh, well, we're just going to go along to get along. No, sir, that is not how you behave. And then what happens when righteous rule? What does the Bible say? The people rejoice. Mm-hmm. Our downtown, our city right now is thriving with new business. Thriving. Like we're getting roads paved. Listen, we just came up with this program like during my administration. You can say, well, Mayor, I don't want the credit. Right? Like Ronald Reagan said, it's amazing what you can get done if you don't care about who gets the credit. I don't want the credit. But what I'm saying is that pushing to make change and do good work around the city really is amazing because people see it happening. Everyone on council, other than me and David, have served before. And it just so happens this administration, we finally realized that we're not putting enough money into the streets. So the whole point is that you can make a huge difference. And municipal elections are the front lines. People oftentimes we put these blinders on, but I think people are waking up. Like we put these blinders on, that the state and the federal level, okay, that's what we want to focus on. But you see what's happening is the Democrats are focusing really heavily, but I think that we have a leg up as Republicans. We're realizing that, hey, listen, we hear what the Democrats have done. This is how we can make real live action and change. So I encourage anybody to do it. Get involved. It's not easy. Nobody ever said it was, but if it's calling, it doesn't matter how hard it gets.
Is there a place still in America for outspoken Christian politicians?
100%. I am the proof of that. And many others. I'm one of thousands. There absolutely are. There is a place for that. People stand up and their spine strengthened with strong men get involved. And that's what it takes. Absolutely there is. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Don't look at a machine and say, I can't get involved. You absolutely can. And your calling might be, I want to do something, but I'm not sure yet. Then you know what? Go ahead and then sign up for a committee. Okay. Mm-hmm. But if you want to get involved in politics, I'm never the individual that will tell you if God is calling you to do something to hold back. Don't wait, because it's amazing when you follow through what he will do through you.
Yeah. I mean, well said, brother. I mean, I think you're a really good example of not just following God's calling, because there could be genuine Christians out there who say, I feel God's calling to get involved politically, but I don't want to center my faith in what I do. I want to be neutral. I want to, it's like I think you've clearly explained follow God's calling, but what I think you're also a good example of is the courage part too. Of I not only has God called me into this role, but I am not going to for a second downplay my beliefs because you want me to, or because there are non-Christians in Monroe. Of course there are, right? But I have noticed too that so-called secularists or non-Christians, they have their own religion, and it usually flies under a rainbow flag. And it's like I can't imagine. I was thinking about this as sort of a counterfactual, hypothetical. What if, we had a very leftist mayor here in Monroe, and during June they did a Pride Month proclamation, and say there were, a couple conservative Christians on the council and a couple leftists, would those conservative Christians on the council, would they have had the courage to try to censor the mayor for that? Or would they have said, well, I disagree, but that's what they believe and they're the mayor, so they get to do it? That's probably what would have happened. But when the thing is totally flipped around, they try to silence the outspoken conservative Christian who's leading, which is just a real shame.
It is, and it's odd. It's odd because these individuals ran on those platforms because of nonpartisanship. Most people, for years, I think 60 years or so in the municipality of Monroe, North Carolina, it has been nonpartisan. And so this idea of you wouldn't necessarily say Republican or Democrat, but you would say Christian conservative. I'm a Christian conservative, and so I ran as a Christian conservative constitutionalist myself. And then people would ask me like, yes, I'll be Republican, but I got told you can't do anything with Republican on it. And, the party can't support you because it's nonpartisan, which is not entirely true. I had a plan of action that if, going into the next election, that I would potentially even ask for endorsement from the Union County Party. That was actually my plan. That's what I was going to do. So for them to say that I knew this was going to happen, it's completely baseless, because my plan was to actually go and ask for an endorsement from the Union County Party, because that is in our plan of organization at the state level, by the way. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. So, I had all these things ready to go. And yes, I would just simply tell you that, it is time that people rise up and they do the right thing, right? And that courageousness and being bold and not being ashamed of what God has made you to do, or even your calling or anything like that. Now's the time to do it. I mean, we have a lot of momentum across this entire city, even. We ran, I've run numbers not long ago. There is 30 for unaffiliated voters. That's the highest in Monroe, not in Union County, but in Monroe. There's more unaffiliated voters than there are Republicans. And 39% of them to 24%. 39% voted in the Republican primary last year. 39% to 24% voted in the Democrat primary, because when you're unaffiliated, you have to go in, you have to pick one or the other. So it's really telling, And so we have a lot of momentum, and our, my team, volunteers, base, all of us, we have a lot of momentum. And the overall thing is God is in control, and whatever the enemy, wishes for evil, God will use for good. And that is the truth.
Amen, man. Well, I'm really encouraged by your leadership, by your standing strong. I'm just going to riff off a couple lessons for our listeners, just in my own words. And it's that, you should never compromise, right, with the people who are trying to silence you. It was so remarkable to me when I was watching the session in which they were voting no confidence in you. And you were saying, I did this. Did I break any of the rules? And I think it was Saluda who said, or it might've been Julie, I can't remember which. They're like, no, you didn't break any of the rules, but the perception, right? That's the thing. As soon as you start letting these people control what you say, they won't stop. Because even if you accept their framing, accept their rules, when you say something that they don't like, they're going to find another reason to come after you. So never play by their framing. Unfortunately, as it stands, right, you don't have the votes on council to push back on these people. Like you and David are, it's 2-5. It's 2-5. It is what it is. Until the next election, right? And hopefully we can get you guys some support there. But never accept their framing. Like never bow to them. Never let them muzzle you. Never let them silence your conscience, your freedom of speech, your religious liberty when you get these positions. And we'll see, right? We'll see what happens. There's an election that gets to decide whether our city wants your type of leadership or not. But it's not up to our city council members, right? They're engaged in very undemocratic shenanigans. And if you think you live in a red state or in a red county or in a red town, and Monroe is not exactly a red town, but it's in a very red county, pay attention, tune in, right? It's like, I feel like what's happening to you is the type of stuff that happens all over our country. And you're just an excellent example of standing strong under fire and just not giving an inch, man. You haven't given these guys a single inch. I love it.
Not
like
one.
they censor you in June of 2024 and you come right back around and do the same thing in June of 2025. I love it, man. So
Just wait
thank
till you see what we do June 2026.
I'll be looking forward to it. So, Rob, thank you for your faith, for your discipleship of Christ, for bringing that into the public square, for trying to do good for the citizens of our city. Tell folks where they can find you, follow you, and stay up to date on what you're doing.
Absolutely. Well, of course, I'm on Facebook. I'm also on X, Instagram, all those, social platforms. Okay. And my handle is at Robert Burns 82 on X if you want to follow me, and elect Robert Burns, I believe, on Facebook. I now just created a mayoral page on Facebook as well, which is Monroe Mayor NC. So you can follow me there, and then you can also go onto my website where you can see all those handles, which is electrobertburns.com. So that's how you can follow me. We do a podcast on occasion. I also have a Mayor's Minute that we brief people on that is either every other week, or sometimes if a lot of big events, it will be every week, where we just brief everybody on all the news and everything going on around the city. And I just want to leave with this. Monroe is an incredible city. We're on the brink of a golden era. It's something that I started and said way before Trump did. And so I would tell you that we are doing a lot of really good things. I'm laser focused. This is just the blip. Not even concerned about what happened. It's affecting them way more than it's affecting me negatively. Positively, it's really brought a lot of attention and light to the fact that we need to reset this council. But the reality is that the city business is moving forward. We're getting a lot of great things done, and we're taking care of the people. We're providing safety. We have one of the best police departments and fire departments in the entire country. And so I'm proud to still, and will always be proud to be the mayor of Monroe, North Carolina. Thank you.
Well, we're proud to have you, brother. Thanks for joining us, man. Don't leave until your thing is uploaded. I'm going to start our closer, hide us out, and then we'll wrap this up. Thanks for joining us, man.
Appreciate you, buddy.
The Center for Baptist Leadership podcast is powered by American Reformer, hosted by William Wolfe, with audio production by Jared Cummings. Our music is a custom remix of Soldiers of Christ in Truth Arrayed, the official hymn of Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. To help CBL reform and revitalize Christian institutions, please consider making a generous donation today at centerforbaptistleadership.org.